For decades, the conflict simmering in the Middle East operated under one strict, unwritten rule. Proxies fought, borders shifted, but the massive industrial arteries pumping oil and gas to the rest of the world were strictly off-limits. That unspoken agreement evaporated on March 18, 2026. Israeli airstrikes targeted Iran's Asaluyeh processing hub, striking directly at the core of the country's energy grid. This chart shows the immediate reaction. Within hours of the strike, Brent crude, the global benchmark for oil, shot past $120 a barrel. Simultaneously, daily commercial shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz collapsed from 141 vessels to single digits, a 97% drop. The Asaluyeh strike and the immediate shutdown of the strait proved that the region's proxy battles had ended. The combatants had decided to weaponize the global energy market itself. To understand why this escalation happened so quickly, we have to look at the target itself, the South Pars field, which is shared across the maritime border with Qatar, where it's known as the North Dome. For Iran, this field supplies 70% of their domestic gas and powers 90% of their electricity. On the Qatari side, it accounts for a full fifth of the world's liquefied natural gas, or LNG, supply. Israel targeted this specific upstream location, the facilities that process the raw gas straight from the earth, to intentionally freeze Iranian industrial production. By causing widespread blackouts, the strategy was to force intense domestic pressure on the government in Tehran. Tehran immediately answered by aiming at the region's exposed export centers. They launched retaliatory strikes on Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city, along with key refineries in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Both sides explicitly adopted an if we burn, you burn strategy. By destroying the infrastructure that powers international trade, they forced global markets into a panic, ensuring that Western powers would have to intervene to stop the economic bleeding. Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz by targeting a vulnerability that exists entirely on paper. This strategy bypassed the need for a physical naval line, using small drones to trigger a massive bureaucratic reaction. Between March 1st and March 18th, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps used relatively cheap drones to strike a handful of commercial tankers, like the Skylight and the MKD Vyom. Those few targeted strikes spooked the global maritime insurance market. Leading protection and indemnity clubs, mutual insurance associations that provide risk coverage for shipowners, immediately canceled war risk policies for the entire region. Under international maritime law, commercial shipping is financially and legally impossible without that coverage. This bureaucratic freeze effectively trapped the massive oil exports of completely uninvolved nations like Kuwait and Iraq inside the Persian Gulf. By forcing the hand of London-based actuaries, the professionals who calculate the financial cost of risk, Iran managed to lock down 20% of the world's daily oil supply without engaging in a single conventional naval battle. The fallout quickly crossed borders into Europe, hitting at the worst possible time. It was mid-March, and following an unusually harsh winter, European gas storage facilities were at their lowest annual levels. With Qatari facilities damaged and the strait compromised, 11 LNG tankers originally destined for Europe were suddenly rerouted to Asia, where frantic buyers were willing to pay massive premiums to secure the cargo. The Asaluyeh strike also took 100 million cubic meters of pipeline gas offline, severing Turkey's primary supply. Turkey was suddenly and forced into the spot market, the public exchange where commodities are traded for immediate delivery, where they had to outbid European nations for the few remaining unassigned cargoes. This graphic tracks the Dutch TTF, which is the benchmark pricing index for European natural gas. As countries scrambled to secure fuel, prices on the TTF skyrocketed 74% in the first 10 days of March alone. The localized strike in the Gulf triggered a chain reaction that reached the heating and grocery bills of every European household, illustrating the extreme fragility of modern supply chains. As of March 23rd, the military escalation is temporarily paused. President Trump ordered a 5-day postponement on any further U.S. strikes against Iranian power plants to allow for diplomatic talks. Those talks are being routed through Islamabad. Pakistan has stepped in as the primary intermediary, with Army Chief Asim Munir acting as the go-between for Washington and Tehran. During these negotiations, Iranian lawmakers have offered to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but with one major condition: all commercial ships must pay a direct security toll to the IRGC to guarantee safe passage. If accepted, this toll would legally and financially formalize Iran's control over the waterway, allowing them to dictate the terms of trade in the region indefinitely. The attacks on South Pars and Ras Laffan proved that the long-standing norms of Middle Eastern combat are dead. Actuarial tables, insurance policies, and commercial shipping lanes are now the most devastating weapons in the modern arsenal.